What if the very first word in the Bible has been mistranslated, or at least misunderstood, for over 1,000 years? What if the opening syllable of Western civilization's oldest religious text contains a secret that most people sitting in church pews, synagogue seats, or seminary classrooms have never been told? It's not God, it's not Lord, it's not Creator, it's not even a name most people recognize. The very first word in the entire Hebrew Bible, the opening syllable of the oldest religious text in Western civilization, is times Bereshit, in the beginning, and the second word, bara, created. But the third word is the one that changes everything, Elohim. And here's what's strange. Almost every English Bible you've ever held in your hands translates that word as simply God. One word for one word. Clean, simple, settled. But that translation hides something. Something that scholars have wrestled with for centuries, that theologians have argued over in candlelit rooms and crowded seminaries, that mystics have treated as a doorway to a truth most people never find. Because times Elohim times is not a simple word. And once you understand what it actually means, once you see what's hidden inside its grammar, its history, and its usage, you will never read the opening of Genesis the same way again. So here's the question that's going to drive everything we're about to explore. What if the word the Bible uses for God was never meant to be as simple as we've made it? Let's start at the beginning, literally. The Hebrew language is ancient, one of the oldest continuously written languages in human history, with inscriptions dating back over 3,000 years. And like all ancient languages, it carries meaning in layers. The root of times, Elohim times, is times El, times a word that appears throughout the ancient Near East, used by Canaanites, Phoenicians, and Babylonians alike. El times simply means power or strength. It's the singular form, one God, one power, one source. But times Elohim times is not singular. This is where it gets extraordinary. In Hebrew grammar, the suffix I am times is a masculine plural ending. Seraphim times plural, cherubim times plural. Elohim times, by every grammatical rule in the Hebrew language, is also plural. It means, in the most direct translation, gods, powers, strengths, multiple. And yet the verb that follows it in Genesis 1:1 is singular. Bara, he created, not they created, not a council, not a committee. A singular action, performed by a plural noun. Grammarians have a name for this. The times pluralis, majestatis, times the plural of majesty. The idea that a singular being uses a plural name to express incomprehensible greatness, like a king who says we when he means I. And that explanation satisfies a lot of people. It's tidy, it's reasonable, it lets you move on. But here's the thing, it doesn't explain everything. Because times Elohim, times doesn't just appear in Genesis 1, it appears 2,570 times in the Hebrew Bible. And in some of those appearances, it doesn't behave like a majestic singular. It behaves like something else entirely. In Psalm 82, God times Elohim times stands in the divine assembly and says, I said, you are gods times Elohim. He's speaking to a group. In Genesis 1:26, the text reads, let times, us times, make mankind, in times our times image, in times our times likeness, not I will make, us, our. Plural pronouns, spoken by a being referred to with a plural name, before any Christian concept of the Trinity existed in written form. And then there's Deuteronomy 6:4, the times Shema, the most sacred prayer in Judaism, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, the Lord our God. The Lord is one. The word times echad, one, is used here deliberately, and times echad times in Hebrew doesn't mean a simple isolated singularity. It means a unified one, a composite one. The same word used in Genesis 2:24 when a man and woman become one flesh, echad, two becoming one. The language is doing something intentional, something that resists easy answers. Now, here's where the story deepens. Because times Elohim times isn't used exclusively for the God of Israel in the Hebrew Bible. It's used for other beings too. When the witch of Endor summons the spirit of Samuel in 1 Samuel 28, King Saul asks what she sees. She describes a divine being, Elohim times rising from the earth. In Exodus 7:1, God tells Moses, I have made you times Elohim times to Pharaoh, Moses, a man, called times Elohim. In Psalm 8:5, humans are described as being made a little lower than times Elohim, a verse so controversial that the Greek Septuagint, the earliest translation of the Hebrew Bible, completed around 200 BCE, softened it to a little lower than angels. So times Elohim times is used for God, for divine beings, for the spirit of a dead prophet, for Moses, for humans. This is not a word with a clean, single definition. This is a word that describes a category, a class of being, defined by power, by divinity, by something that transcends the ordinary. Think of it this way. In English, we have the word royalty. It can refer to a king, it can refer to a queen, a prince, a duchess. It describes a category of being with a certain kind of authority and status. Elohim times functions something like that, except the category it describes is divine rather than political. And just as royalty doesn't mean every royal is equal, a duchess is not a queen. Not every times Elohim times occupies the same rank in the cosmic order. And now something even more striking comes into focus. Ancient Israel did not exist in a vacuum. The people who first heard and wrote these texts lived surrounded by neighboring cultures, Canaanites, Egyptians, Babylonians, all of whom had their own pantheons, their own divine councils, their own hierarchies of gods. And those cultures also used times El times and times Elohim times as names for their deities. The Ugaritic texts clay tablets, discovered in 1,929 inches, modern-day Syria, dating to around 1,400 BCE, describe a divine council, presided over by the god times El, a heavenly court, a gathering of divine beings who deliberate, who are assigned domains, who rule over the earth and its nations. And the Hebrew Bible, without apology, without embarrassment, uses almost identical language. Psalm 89:6-7 asks, Who in the heavens can compare with the Lord? Who is like the Lord among the times Elohim? There is a council. There are other beings called times Elohim, and above them all stands the God of Israel supreme, incomparable, but not alone in a universe of one. This is the framework that scholar Michael Heiser spent decades reconstructing. His work, particularly in Times the Unseen Realm, Times published in 2015, argues that the ancient Israelites were not strict monotheists in the modern philosophical sense, believing in the existence of only one divine being, period, full stop. They were what he called times monolatrists. Times they worshipped one God, acknowledged as supreme, while recognizing the existence of other divine beings in a cosmic hierarchy. The difference matters enormously, because it means the Bible's story isn't just about God and humans. It's about God and a whole unseen world of beings, some faithful, some rebellious, some assigned to nations, some fallen. The cosmic drama is bigger than most Sunday sermons ever suggest, and times Elohim times is the word that holds all of that together. Now step back for a moment, because what we've uncovered so far raises a question that cuts straight to the heart of faith. Does any of this threaten the uniqueness of God? The answer, if you read the text carefully, is the opposite. The Hebrew Bible is relentlessly, almost obsessively clear on one point. There is no times Elohim, times like times Elohim. The divine council exists, but it exists beneath him. The other beings are called times Elohim, but they are created, they are assigned, they are judged. Psalm 82 ends with God pronouncing judgment on the divine assembly. They will die like men. Their power is delegated, not inherent. Their existence is contingent, not eternal. The God of Israel stands in a category that even the word times Elohim times cannot fully contain, which is exactly why, throughout the Hebrew Bible, other names are layered on top of it. El Shaddai times God Almighty. El Elyon times God Most High. Adonai times Lord. YHWH times the name so sacred it was never spoken aloud. The name that means something closer to I am or I will be than any title or descriptor. Elohim times is the category. YHWH times is the person within it and above it. And this is the reframe that changes everything. When you read, "In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth," you are not reading a simple statement about a distant, solitary deity who snapped his fingers and made stuff. You are reading the opening line of a cosmic declaration. You are reading the announcement that the being who stands supreme above all divine powers, above every times Elohim, times in the heavenly assembly, above every force and authority in the unseen world, that being, YHWH Elohim, is the one who initiated creation. It's not a quiet statement, it's a thunderclap, and it means that the universe, from its very first moment, was not a neutral space. It was a claimed space, an authored space, a space shaped by a being whose name alone carries the weight of every divine power that has ever existed and then exceeds it. There's something else worth sitting with. The fact that times Elohim times is plural, even if you accept the plural of majesty explanation, points to something about the nature of God that pure singularity cannot capture. A God who is, in some sense, beyond the categories of one and many. A God whose unity is not the unity of an atom but the unity of an ocean, vast, deep, containing multitudes, and yet one. The ancient rabbis didn't resolve this tension. They sat inside it. They argued about it across generations of commentary and Talmudic debate, debates that fill thousands of pages of the Talmud and Midrash. The early church fathers didn't resolve it either. They built an entire theological framework, the Trinity, to try to honor both the oneness and the internal complexity that the word times, Elohim times, seems to suggest. Maybe the word was never meant to be resolved. Maybe it was meant to be a door left slightly open, an invitation to keep asking, keep seeking, keep pressing into a reality that language itself strains to hold. Because here's what's true, regardless of where you land theologically. The God described in the Hebrew Bible is not a simple being. He is not a cosmic vending machine, not a distant watchmaker, not a concept to be filed and forgotten. He is times Elohim, times the fullness of divine power, expressed in a word that grammar itself cannot contain. You started this video with a question. What if the very first word in the Bible has been misunderstood? You thought God was a translation, a placeholder, a word you already understood. But times Elohim times is not a placeholder, it's a window. And on the other side of it is a vision of the divine that is older, stranger, richer, and more breathtaking than most of us were ever taught. The first word in the Bible isn't God, it's times Elohim. And now you know exactly why that matters.